Be like a douchey Captain America.
The guy who believes in peace at any cost, no matter how many people he needs to kill along the way.
Okay, I got it.
I don't care how many demons he's fought and how many hells. He's never fought us. Not us united.
So guys, quite a bit of DC news today. Not only do we have a spin-off show from the Suicide Squad coming to HBO Max, that's in the works from James Gunn, and it surrounds Peacemaker, obviously starring John Cena, who will be reprising his role from the upcoming Suicide Squad movie. But we also have some absolutely huge Snyder Cut news, because it looks like Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, and Ray Fisher are all reprising their roles, or should I say coming back to shoot extra scenes for the Snyder Cut, which is insane because around the time the Snyder Cut was actually announced to be a thing, none of that was reported. I believe the opposite was said, but we'll get into that a little bit later. There's also a little bit of stuff to do with Ray Fisher as well, so we've got a little bit to talk about today, and I just really can't wait to dig into it. But also, I really want to know your thoughts down in the comments below about how you feel about absolutely everything. But let's get straight into it with this Peacemaker show. And does anyone else just want to say Pacemaker all the time? Like, I feel like I must have said it already without realizing it in one of these videos I've been covering since the Suicide Squad trailer was released. But either way, this is really interesting. I was gonna say cool, and it is cool, but like, it's interesting to know what you guys are going to think about this being the show we're getting on HBO Max. And I'm not saying it's got to be a bad show or anything like that. It's just, I think I've seen quite a few tweets out there or posts on several different websites of people saying what people want from it, you know, like an HBO Max DC original show or whatever, and what we're getting kind of thing. And as I said, I don't want to throw shade on something that could be absolutely amazing. It's just, I think, well, it's kind of like expect the unexpected. So diving into some of the details, James Gunn will be writing all of the 8 episodes of Peacemaker and directing actually several of them. And it seems as though it will be a prequel series with the filming beginning in early 2021. And I'll get into the whole prequel thing in a minute because there's a little bit of confusion there. James Gunn says that Peacemaker is an opportunity to delve into current world issues through the lens of this superhero slash supervillain slash and the world's biggest douchebag. James Gunn does also stress that this will not affect the development of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 because, you know, with the whole pandemic situation, it allowed him to quite literally write a TV show in his own words. So, like, it's not really going to interrupt all of that stuff. But as to how this came to be, he also said that it's also DC coming to me and saying, if you could do a TV show about any character from the Suicide Squad, which one would you do first? And I was like, I've been having this idea about Peacemaker, which is very interesting to me because we've got a huge lineup in that movie, some more obvious than others who are going to die, but for all we know, Peacemaker could die, but that doesn't mean this show can't still, you know, explore, as what we're about to get into, the origins, which is, you know, causing some of the confusion amongst the fans, and that's something I want to get into as well, because it said HBO Max is set to explore the origins of the Peacemaker character, the master of weapons from the highly anticipated upcoming The Suicide Squad film in the new Max original action adventure comedy series Peacemaker. Yet, James Gunn says we're holding off announcing the timeline of the Peacemaker TV show until after the Suicide Squad movie. Now, when fans question this due to the announcement saying that it would be exploring the origins, quite literally quoted, explore the origins, Gunn has kind of walked back on that in terms of clarifying in the tweet saying, exploring the origins, quote unquote, does not necessarily mean prequel. Now, I don't really know how to look at that because you would have thought that the Suicide Squad movie, you have to assume, or I think a lot of what fans are doing is assuming that Peacemaker in the movie is not in his origins. So when James Gunn says exploring the origins does not necessarily mean a prequel to Suicide Squad, it's just kind of confusing because it seems like this guy is an already established character. But just for argument's sake, let's say James Gunn isn't remotely lying to try and prevent any kind of fans speculating and finding out what happens to him in the film one way or another. You could actually argue argue that in the movie, he actually gets his costume for the first time, and he's just been in prison for maybe doing similar-esque Peacemaker things. Like, he hasn't actually gone out there as Peacemaker, but he's already been in prison, and he's hired by Amanda Waller for this job, and that is where he gets the suit, I guess. But I still find that a bit of a stretch. Like, would they really manufacture a suit for him? It seems like the Suicide Squad roster in this movie will be getting their gear to go on this mission. But regardless, you could still say that he might have already just started becoming Peacemaker with a costume, gotten locked up in jail, and for this mission in the movie with all of the other Suicide Squad members, after that's done, he survives, and therefore the show still explores his origins, because as James Gunn said, just to reiterate one last time, exploring the origins does not necessarily mean prequel. Well, that could be true because he could survive this movie, and the show could obviously be set slightly afterwards, still exploring the origins of this character. However, I don't know, I kind of find it a little bit hard to believe, because even if he survived this movie, the Suicide Squad and their missions only get time off their sentences. I struggle to believe that this would eliminate all the time off his sentence. Usually it's like a decade or so for their very, very long stretch of a sentence for each member. So that's, why you could argue there might be the Suicide Squad sequels, because the members of this movie who make it through would still be inclined or feel like doing it again, because that means even more time off their sentence. So I don't know. Either way, I think James Gunn could be walking back on it a little bit. It could be set before the Suicide Squad movie, exploring the origins before we see him in the film. And that's all I'm gonna say about that. It's hard to definitively know, really. But what are my thoughts on this? I'm game for it. I really am. I think if James Gunn, think about it, if he had the whole roster there available to make a TV show, well, that's technically not true, because I'm sure he had some characters who just, wouldn't be getting their own show within itself, probably like Margot Robbie's Harley Quinn. That would be off the board for various different reasons. He would have chose Peacemaker for a reason. He obviously sees a lot of potential in it. I think it does have potential. The character within himself, after doing quite a bit of research on my end just for the upcoming movie, because there's some characters like this character who I was fairly unfamiliar with, there is a lot of opportunity there. As they even say in the trailer, this guy will achieve peace, like as in his name, through any means. He would kill without hesitation if it meant, achieving his goals. Doesn't really matter who it is. And also, in the comics, they can incorporate funny things into the show, as we know it's going to be like an action-adventure comedy series. For example, I believe that some of the people he kills or has killed are collected, or should I say their souls are embedded within his helmet, and they offer some kind of commentary or narration to him as he's going about his day or mission or whatever. And that could be very interesting, especially for a TV show, because then you wouldn't necessarily have to have Peacemaker talking to like real people all the time, because you would have the commentary of his victims speaking to him, saying God knows what, and that would just make for a lot of comedic moments within itself. Yet again, that's one thing that may not make it to this adaptation. It might not happen at all. He could just be a funny enough character that's been adapted to this live action from James Gunn in this movie and in this TV show in of his own right, just because he's a guy who will do anything to achieve his goal, and that is peace. So would love to hear your thoughts on that. But as for the Justice League stuff, whoa, I really didn't necessarily expect this one, because as I mentioned at the beginning of this video, when the Snyder Cut was announced as a thing with like a near $30 million budget, if memory serves me well, for visual effects and just kind of combing over the movie in his original vision, there were many reports saying that they wouldn't be allowing room for budget for additional shots, like reshoots and getting the actors in, let alone fans and everyone alike really speculating that even though the cast supports Zack, would he even be able to get them back in outside the additional ADR being lent to the Snyder Cut, because apparently they were doing that at the very least. But now it's being revealed everywhere, and I believe this originated with the Hollywood Reporter, that Zack Snyder will be filming those new scenes for his Justice League Snyder Cut with Ben Affleck, Henry Cavill, Gal Gadot, and Ray Fisher, despite Ray Fisher's current ongoing situation with Warner Brothers. Now, according to the Hollywood Reporter, the call sheets indicate it will be a week or so long shoot. As to what these scenes will be, honestly, I'm not going to BS. I have no idea. It could be absolutely anything, but I think it's going to have to be fairly crucial, you would have to think, for it to be a thing in the first place, because I think one aspect of this being slightly shocking is there's one thing letting him finish the Snyder Cut, giving him tens of millions of dollars to finish the CGI and stuff like that and kind of morph and mold it all back together in his own vision, but then there's a lot more effort to it when you get these stars back in. It really is. Like, the fact that Henry Cavill, I mean, he's shooting The Witcher right now. Is he going on like I suppose they'd let him have a week break. Ben Affleck's getting back in the bat suit. We've got Ray Fisher. That's very interesting with the whole, as I said, situation going on with Warner Brothers, and there's something I want to speak about of that in just a second. And Gal Gadot, well, I guess she's game for it, whatever. And the scene must be significant to a degree where it connects a lot of things together potentially in the Snyder Cut. Obviously, it's already been said he doesn't want to use a single grain of what Joss Whedon shot for his Justice League, so to speak. So I'm very interested to see what he's going to do in this week or so long shoot. Who knows? There could be maybe slightly new ideas in there, because he's had plenty of time since he left that production and handed it over to Joss Whedon to take some fan stuff into mind. And I'm sure, of course, he has his own ideas and vision, of course, but like, he knows what the fans want, and maybe there's going to be some cool extra things that wasn't even in his own original vision that he's going to get these stars to incorporate with these new reshoots. Honestly, as time goes by, I mean, I've always said, yeah, I'll see the Snyder Cut. You may have heard me say this before. However, I wasn't one of those people tweeting it out every day or anything like that. I wasn't massively hyped about it because I didn't think it would necessarily happen, but as things progress along, especially when it got announced, I was excited for it. And as time goes by with these little updates like this, I really am low-key pretty excited about seeing this, even though I don't have high expectations for the movie overall. And what I mean by that is I just don't want to do that in the terms of I think that this movie will be decent. Like, even with it being in Snyder's vision, I don't want to put it like, oh, it's going to be freaking amazing. I want to be pleasantly surprised if it's amazing. And I really endorse the whole 4 1-hour kind of episodic versions of it. And all of this is pretty awesome news. But also, I did want to include this, as I said, with regards to Ray Fisher and the situation there. Along with this Snyder Cut news, they went into his appearance in the Flash movie in the Hollywood Reporter article, or should I say, lack thereof for now. They say Fisher is in talks with Warner Brothers to make a cameo in The Flash, a Justice League spin-off movie due to shoot next year. He has options negotiated for future appearances, including cameos beyond the initial film, but in earlier drafts of the Flash script, Cyborg was a much more active player than the one in the current script. Now, this is where it gets interesting. Sources say the studio exercised its option for Flash, even upping its negotiated price for what's described as a 3-scene appearance. Now, Fisher's side countered with a figure doubling that. Warner's turned that down, and negotiations remained stalled for weeks. And in my opinion, I'm guessing his current dispute likely doesn't help that. And I think they will come to some kind of thing with this, or maybe not, especially with all of that tension recently. But you never know. I think, they'll come to some kind of thing, especially as, he's going back to shoot with Zack Snyder and the others right now. There's other little tidbits in that article I think you guys would be interested in terms of how Joss Whedon's Justice League reshoots were described as having like a set filled with tension, and how Whedon removed many of Fisher's scenes, as quite a few of us already knew, and his directing style actually is described as the opposite of Zack Snyder's whole collaborative approach to directing. And I don't know, just a little spice, I guess, and I don't know if you want to go as far as saying tea there. But that is the news roundup of today's DC movie news. And if I do say so myself, I feel like today we got a good dose, and I feel like we all ate pretty well as DC fans, honestly. I mean, say what you will about the HBO Max show spin-off of the Suicide Squad, Peacemaker. I really want to know your thoughts on that. Are you excited? Are you more kind of like me? Maybe it's not what you expected, but doesn't mean it won't be good. But maybe some people are still of the opinion that even completely outside the Suicide Squad, why aren't HBO Max making a Constantine live-action whole reboot? We're talking dark, gritty, not Matt Ryan, not Keanu Reeves, say what you will, but complete reboot or something else of your own desire. Let me know your thoughts on that and the reshoots for Zack Snyder's Justice League down in the comments below. If you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate a like. It really does show your support on the channel. Links, as always, are in the top pinned comment to my Discord server where you can talk to me personally in voice chat, text chat. Other places to support me are the join button on the channel where you unlock perks, rewards, and as well as my Patreon and Teespring store for some BobaTalks merch. But thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a lovely rest of your day. I'll see you in the next video. Goodbye.